Welcome to Revenge Was Peace. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your comment.
All I had wanted was a daughter, and he knew that on day one. Other people are just hardwired to you. Ever since I was a teenager, I had always wanted to become a mother. A mother. Not a special mother, though. I wanted to have a daughter. I didn't have a warm and nurturing home to grow up in. My mother used to tiptoe around my father, and I think deep inside myself, I promised myself, if I had a little girl, I would raise her to feel secure, listened to, powerful. So when I showed up and told Nathan that I wanted the same, I had bought him hard. I can still remember our third date. We were walking past a nursery and I said half jokingly, "One day, I'm going to have a daughter." He didn't bat an eyelid, simply smiled and said, "There will be one, and she will be my own little princess." That was everything. When he sealed himself into my heart, Nathan was good looking in that boy next door sort of way. No biggie. Simply good. Cuddly. He talked about family as if it was a sacrament. About having to be a better man than his own father. About salivating to become a father. We got married 2 years later. And 6 months later, I was pregnant. It was a boy. Don't think that I was not grateful. I was. Deeply. But a small part of my soul drooped gently. However, as I was cradling our newborn in my arms, that pain mellowed into something kinder. Nathan was head over heels. He took pictures of everything: first bath, first steps, even a first diaper blowout. He was involved, focused, present. Then came baby number 2, another boy, and something shifted. He became quieter, worked longer shifts, spent more time glued to his phone. If I asked him what was amiss, he would respond, "Tired, babe, scraping a living." I trusted him. I wanted to trust him. Then came a third son. I was alone and running on fumes, 3 little tots. No immediate family. Just time enough to bathe. I begged him to do so. He said I was being overly dramatic. But whenever I mentioned having another attempt at a girl, he'd remark, "Let's be real, sweetheart. We raise boys." I laughed once. And after that, I no longer laughed. Since deep inside, I still lusted after her. That daughter I had been imagining myself with since I was 13. That's when I started doing research on adoption. In secret, at first. Internet forums, blogs, midnight rabbit holes. And one day, I told him I would like to adopt a girl. I told myself, preparing myself. Instead of getting defensive, he smiled. "Anyway," he said, "let's do this." And just like that, I was in love with him all over again. We went through months of procedures, spoke with social workers, scheduled interviews, background checks. It was exhausting, but it seemed right. The instant we first saw Sophia, this tiny 5-year-old girl with massive, melancholy brown eyes, I sincerely believe a switch was thrown in myself. She was not created by my body, yet my heart had decided she was mine. Bringing her home was the best day I've experienced. And behold, for a while, I had a true family, as if I had always had. 3 lads, 1 lass, a husband who smiled once more. And for a while, it was as if the family I had always envisioned was real finally. 3 lads, a lass, a husband with a newfound smile. Now I look back and see all of the cracks that had gone unnoticed. Just as Nathan never wanted to be left alone with Sophia. The way he kept his phone face down. How he once again began working weekends. Then, I just thought, parenting is hard. Marriage is hard. Life is hard. And then came that day. The knocking on the door. There were 3 teenage girls on my porch, restless, one of whom had a piece of paper in her hand. "Is Nathana at home?" inquired the oldest. Then, in that moment, my stomach dropped. Since all 3 of them had his eyes, they didn't have to use words. I could already feel the truth stirring under my skin. I had no idea how long I was standing there at the front door. 3 young women. Same brown hair, same hazel eyes, my husband's same nose. They weren't sobbing, they weren't furious. They just looked awkward, sad maybe, like they were doing something that they did not want to do but had to. The tallest one cleared her throat and said, "Hi, is Nathan home?" My throat was dry. No one ever called him Nathan. No strangers, no kids. At home, he was just Dad, or Nate, to his friends. And that's when I figured out they were no strangers. One of them, the one in the middle, likely 15 or 16, dug into her bag and gave me a sheet of paper. I could not look. My fingers trembled before I could grab a hold of it. Birth certificate. Father, Nathan Carter. Mother, Melissa Brooks. I looked back at the girls. They didn't budge. They didn't flinch. They just sat there and watched myself as I assembled things like a sick puzzle. "I'm Ava," she said softly. "These are my sisters, Chloe and Zoe. We're his daughters." No one spoke following that. My body was tense, like my brain was buffering reality in slow motion. I remember feeling, this can't be happening. This is a misunderstanding. This is a terrible confusion. Coughs and colds, I knew. Nathan was not home that day. He was working late, as was his custom on Tuesdays, same as Fridays, and on some weekends. God! I invited the girls in, but they declined. They wanted nothing. They did not come to scream or cry or beg. They just wanted to inform me, as clearly their mother had only recently found out about me, about my kids, my life. She was named Melissa. Nathan explained to her that we had broken up years ago, but remained friends for the kids. He explained to me she was a college ex and didn't allow him much time with his daughters. And I trusted him. For almost 17 years. I trusted him. He had medical paperwork in his glove box from when our youngest son was admitted with pneumonia. Our son's entire name. My emergency contact information. She accused him. He didn't. She dug some more. She found our address. And then, she sent her daughters. The girls weren't angry. They were tired. Ava glanced at me as she departed and said, "He's a good pretender, isn't he?" That sentence hurt me more than any screaming would have. That evening, Nathan entered as if nothing had occurred. I was standing in the corridor, holding the birth certificate. He looked at me, stood still. He lost color from his face. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said, "I met Ava, and Chloe, and Zoe." He stared at me, then sat down, hands over his face, and uttered the one sentence I never would have anticipated. "I didn't plan on things going this way." What does that even refer to? He promised that he would let me know. He told us that it was before we were married, that Melissa had gotten pregnant and didn't inform him afterwards, and that he had thought that he could do both. Two families, two truths. I could have ejected him. I would have hurled something, yelled, woken my sisters, collected his belongings, but I didn't. Since our daughter, whom we adopted as a couple, was sleeping in her room, as our three lads were getting themselves ready for bed by brushing their teeth, because I still loved him. God forgive me. I still loved him. I asked him, "Do you love them too?" He didn't answer, and still, I stayed, because some part of me believed that if I stayed quiet, if I just held on tighter, maybe I could pretend it wasn't real. Or maybe deep down I was afraid of who I'd be without him. I kept telling myself it was for the kids, that I didn't want to blow up their world. But the truth, I didn't know who I was outside of this family. I didn't know how to stop being his wife, even when I hated him. Even when I couldn't meet his eyes, even when I felt like a ghost in my own house, I still chose to stay. I didn't scream. I didn't leave. I just stopped being myself. The first few days after I found out, I moved through my life like I wasn't really there. Breakfast, lunchboxes, homework, brush your teeth, don't forget your jacket, smile at the neighbors, pretend everything's fine. It's terrifying how quickly we learn to function while falling apart. Nathan and I didn't really talk about the girls again. He said Melissa had kicked him out, said she was cutting all contact. He said he was sorry. He said he loved me, and I nodded, and made dinner, and cried quietly in the laundry room while folding tiny socks. I told myself I was doing the right thing. That families survive worse. That forgiveness is a choice. But at night, when everything was quiet and the kids were asleep, I started hearing things. Not actual voices but memories. Echoes. Her name in his mouth. Ava calling him dad. The sound of his car door closing when he said he was working late. I started seeing ghosts in my own kitchen. I'd open a drawer and wonder, did Melissa have this exact same spatula? Did she buy him this brand of coffee? Did he hold her the way he used to hold me? I knew everything and still, I knew nothing. I stopped asking questions because I was terrified of the answers. One night, I opened his laptop. I told myself it was just to check the family calendar. But instead, I found photos, dozens of them. Not hidden, just there. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, beach trips, 3 girls clinging to him, Melissa smiling beside him. He had a whole life, a full life, a happy one. And I was just the other version, the reliable one, the fallback plan. I didn't confront him. I just closed the laptop, went to the bathroom, and threw up. I didn't sleep that night, or the next one. Nathan noticed, of course. He started acting overly helpful, doing the dishes, picking the kids up from school, leaving little notes on the fridge like nothing had ever happened. One of them said, "We'll get through this. I love you." And all I could think was, did she get notes too? I wasn't angry all the time. Mostly, I just felt numb, detached, like I was watching someone else's life on mute. Until one night, Sophia, our daughter, came into my room holding her stuffed giraffe. She looked up at me and asked, "Mommy, are you sad?" And I broke, right there, on the floor. I held her and cried so hard I scared myself. Not because she asked, but because I realized she could feel it. All of it. The weight, the lies, the fake smiles. She was only 8, and she knew. The next morning, I told Nathan I needed space. He offered to sleep on the couch. I said no, I needed time away from the house. From us. I took the kids to my sister's for the weekend. He didn't fight me on it. While they played in the backyard, I sat under a tree with a notebook and tried to make a list. Reasons to stay. Reasons to leave. The stay column filled up fast. The kids. Stability. Sophia needs both parents. I don't want to split holidays. I don't want to explain it to everyone. I still love him, God help me. I'm scared to be alone. The leave column? Just 2 lines. He lied for 17 years. I don't recognize myself anymore. And that's when it hit me. It's possible to drown in shallow water if you're too tired to stand up. I didn't forgive him. I just paused the collapse. When I came back home that Sunday evening, the house felt unfamiliar. Same furniture, same family photos, same faint scent of laundry detergent and the cinnamon candle I always lit in the kitchen. But it all felt like someone else's life. Nathan stood in the doorway, nervous, like a teenager meeting a parent. He opened his arms slightly, unsure if I wanted a hug. I didn't move. Instead, I said exactly what I'd been rehearsing for days. I'm not leaving you, but I'm not pretending nothing happened. His shoulders dropped with relief, maybe even hope. I told him I needed rules, boundaries, full access to everything, his phone, email, bank accounts. Not because I wanted to control him, but because I needed to feel sane again. He agreed immediately. Too quickly, actually. I told him we'd go to therapy. Weekly. No excuses. He said, whatever it takes. And then I said the hardest part. I don't trust you. Not even a little. He nodded. He didn't argue. And somehow, that hurt more than if he had. The weeks that followed were strange. We felt more like roommates trying to play house. Therapy was awkward at first. Nathan said all the right things. He admitted to the lies. He claimed he never loved Melissa the way he loved me. He said he got stuck, that he kept both lives going out of fear. Fear of losing his daughters. Fear of starting over. Fear of facing the damage he caused. And me? I just listened. Because somewhere deep down, I still wanted to believe there was something left to save. Not for him. Not even for me, but for the 4 small humans who had no part in this mess. The boys started to pick up on the tension. One night, my oldest Liam asked, "Is Daddy in trouble?" I lied. I said we were just having a hard time, but we were working through it. He nodded slowly, then asked, "Are you still in love?" And I couldn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore. We kept Sophia out of it. She was too young, too soft, and in a strange way, she became the glue holding us together, the one child we had both chosen. Nathan started overcompensating, cooking dinner, picking up the kids without being asked. He gave me space, bought flowers, left sticky notes on the bathroom mirror that said things like, "Thank you for staying. You're stronger than I deserve." It should have made me feel seen, but instead, it made me angry, because I wasn't staying out of strength. I was staying out of fear. Fear of uprooting the kids. Fear of living in 2 houses. Fear of splitting holidays and dentist appointments. And if I'm honest, fear of starting over at almost 40. Some nights, we'd sit on the couch like strangers in a waiting room. Not fighting. Not touching. Just existing side by side. Watching Netflix like it was some sacred ritual we didn't dare skip. I cried less. But not because I felt better. Because I felt emptier. There was one night that broke the pattern. Nathan was in the kitchen making tea. I was at the dining table, watching Sophia draw. She looked up at me and asked, "Can you help me spell family?" I took a breath, then began, "FAMI," but she cut me off. "Do families lie to each other?" I froze. Nathan heard it too. I could hear his spoon stop clinking in the mug. And suddenly I didn't know what to say. Because how do you explain to a child that yes, sometimes families lie not just in words, but in silences, in smiles, in all the things we don't say out loud? How do you tell her that the people who are supposed to protect her can also be the ones who crack the ground beneath her feet? I looked at her and said, "Not the good ones," and she smiled like that was enough, like it settled something. But I knew deep down our family wasn't a good one anymore. We were trying, but trying doesn't erase 17 years of deception. Still, I stayed, because I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, trying could be enough. I stayed, but I wasn't the same woman he betrayed, and he could feel it. Resentment doesn't always sound like shouting. Sometimes it sounds like silence over dishes. Like saying "I'm fine" when you're not. Like brushing your teeth beside someone you no longer trust. Both of you pretending you're still on the same team. Nathan and I were doing all the right things. Therapy, family dinners, weekend movie nights with the kids. We even smiled in photos. I posted them online with captions like, "Grateful for my crew. Home is messy and loud and full of love." What a joke. Because behind every filtered moment, I was disappearing piece by piece. I used to be soft, intuitive, full of hope. Now, I was calculating, guarded, checking his phone when he went to the bathroom, second-guessing every word, every late meeting, every unnamed text message. Trust wasn't just broken, it was buried. I kept thinking, you didn't just cheat. You built another life. You wrapped Christmas presents for 3 girls while I was putting our kids to bed. How do you forgive something that calculated? How do you stay in a house that feels like a crime scene, even after the mess is cleaned up? He could feel it. The distance. The shift. Nathan started asking questions he used to avoid. "Are you okay? Are we okay? Do you still love me?" And I'd always answer with something vague like, "I'm trying." Or, "This isn't easy." But one day he pressed harder. We were in the car, driving home from a school event. The kids were asleep in the back seat. He whispered, "You haven't touched me in weeks." I stared out the window. "You used to touch her every week for years." He didn't say another word the rest of the ride. The thing is, I didn't even hate him. Not really. What I hated was the version of myself I had to become just to stay married to him. The wife who smiled through gritted teeth. The mother who played happy family while hiding invisible wounds. The woman who texted Melissa's daughters back with grace, because none of this was their fault. Yes, they reached out. Eva started messaging me a few months after that day on the porch. She wanted to know how her siblings were doing. Said she missed her dad, but also hated him. Sometimes we'd talk late at night. She'd ask me, "Why did you stay?" And I'd dodge it, or lie. But one night, I told her the truth. I stayed because leaving felt harder. She wrote back one sentence. "It doesn't get easier when you stay either." I stared at that message for a long time. One afternoon, I found an old box in the attic. Inside were love letters Nathan had written to me when we first started dating. Little notes on napkins. Ticket stubs from movies. A photo of us at a county fair, both of us smiling like two people who didn't know how brutal love could become. I sat on the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because I missed that version of us, but because I finally understood that she was gone. The girl in that photo, the boy who promised he'd never hurt her, gone. And what was left behind? Two survivors. Not lovers. Not soulmates. Just two people raising kids and paying bills, too afraid of the chaos that would follow if one of them said it out loud. This isn't working anymore. But still, we kept going, because habit is louder than heartbreak. Because routine, if you blur your vision hard enough, can look like love. Because saying I want out felt like admitting I'd wasted 17 years on a lie and I wasn't ready to face that. Not yet. So I stayed. And every day, I became a little quieter, a little colder, a little less me. I didn't walk away, but I stopped standing still. There wasn't one big moment. No dramatic fight. No suitcase flung onto the lawn. No final straw that broke the whole thing. It happened slowly, quietly, like fog lifting, like waking up one morning and realizing the silence in the house feels safer than his voice. It started with little things. I stopped waiting up for him, stopped checking his phone, stopped flinching when he said he'd be home late. Not because I trusted him, but because I didn't care anymore. We were still married, still raising our kids, still sharing a bed most nights. But inside me, I had built a wall so high, so thick, that even when he reached for my hand, it felt like touching a stranger through glass. He noticed, of course. He asked one night, "Do you still love me?" And I told him the truth. I don't know what that means anymore. I started therapy on my own, not the couples sessions, just me. I walked into that room and said, "I think I disappeared." The therapist smiled gently and asked, "When did you first feel that way?" And without even thinking, I said, "The day I stayed." She didn't press. She just gave me space to speak something I hadn't had in years. Week after week, I started peeling back the layers. Not just the betrayal, but the grief. Grieving the woman I used to be. The marriage I thought I had. The version of my life I had spent almost 2 decades building in my head. I started journaling again. Reading books that had nothing to do with parenting or marriage. Drinking my coffee alone in the backyard each morning, just breathing. Just being. The kids noticed. "Mom, you're smiling more." I wasn't. Not really. But I was lighter. And that's when I realized something strange. I was still in the marriage, but I was no longer of it. I had stopped investing, stopped hoping, stopped begging him to say the right thing or become someone new. I accepted what he was, what we were, what we would never be again. And in that acceptance came peace. Nathan felt it deeply. He started trying harder again, making plans, suggesting weekend getaways, bringing up fresh starts. But I had moved past wanting to fix it. I didn't want to reset. I wanted freedom, even if that meant living in the same house. One night he asked, "Are you leaving me?" I looked at him for a long time. Then I said, "No, but I'm done trying to love you like before." He nodded slowly. And for once, he didn't try to fix it. He didn't argue. He just looked tired. And that's when I realized we were both trapped. But at least now, I had stopped pretending the cage was made of gold. It's been a year. We're still here. Still married technically. But it's different now. We're partners in parenting. Co-inhabitants. Friends sometimes. Strangers often. There are no more lies. But also, no more illusions. I don't hate him. But I no longer need him to be anything more than what he is. I don't wait for apologies. I don't search for love in places that only hold dust. Some days are heavy, some are quiet, but all of them are mine now. And that's the part I never thought I'd be able to say. I stayed, but I stopped waiting. Not every ending looks like a door slamming. Sometimes it's just you, choosing peace over pain, letting go of the fantasy, and learning to live in the quiet.